Hello, everybody, and welcome to the last day of the Mastering the Music Business online. It's a bit of a weird feeling, quite different from what we've been used to for the past 4 years. But I think that it was pretty helpful that we managed to pull this off because we're living some very, very troubled times, and there's a lot to talk about. Yeah, it's our I'll ask our director first of all to mute his microphone so that we can understand each other over here. Thank you. And also I'd like to welcome 3 of the 4 panelists we've invited for our first panel today. We're still waiting on one, and also until the crowd builds up, because this is the way it is online as opposed to doing stuff on stage. People need to, log on and start viewing.
Yeah.
So yeah. So I'm just going to repeat some information that I've been giving out for the past 2 days, and that is that everybody who's viewing and has a question is more than welcome to ask it. My colleagues will make sure that I get all the questions, and we'll have some time at the end of the panel to answer any question from any viewer that might occur. Let me welcome our panelists today. Our subject is artist management in time of crisis. So this is an artist managers panel. And it gives me great pleasure to welcome Grace Pulacek, founder and CEO of 3 Notes Management. Grace, hello.
Hi, thanks for having us, Dan.
Thank you for joining us, and I hope you stay with us, because from what I understand, your internet connection is quite poor. So yeah, I hope you stay.
I think it should be all good now. We're all connected, so fingers crossed.
Thank you. EKATERINA BAZHANOVA, artist manager and founder, music development, Russia. Hello, EKATERINA. Again, we meet again online.
Hi, Dan. It's great to see you again online.
Yes, and also another very good friend of MMB, Mr. Jake BEAUMONT-NESBITT, policy advisor, the International Music Managers Forum. Jake, it's wonderful to see you again, even if it's only online.
Thanks for having me, Dan. Good to see you guys.
So, guys, we're still waiting on Hannes Church, founder of Ink Music. If she manages to log on and join us, she'll just appear sometime in the future. If not, then we'll just get on with our business.
Okay.
So yeah, it's a time of crisis. I don't have to say that again or repeat it, because we've been repeating this word for the past 3 days a lot. But I'm talking to artist managers, and you're managers with a lot of experience who handle a lot of artists. How are present times for artists? And I'm talking especially about their minds and souls, because finances are pretty clear. They're going down. But how about their minds and souls? How are your artists doing? And anyone can answer.
I'm quite happy to start if everyone's okay with that.
Please do.
I think it's definitely a really difficult time that we are faced with, obviously. And I think when this all started, we tended to forget exactly about the souls and minds aspect, and we thought purely on the economical front. And I think through time now, this has made it even more difficult. So obviously, this, I've had artists that have gone from saying, I want to give up. What is the future? Can you give me hope? Do we know when concerts are going to start again? And I think it's a really, really difficult time. You have to be very careful, because at the end of the day, we have their talent, we have their gem in our hands. So we want to keep that as precious as possible. And I tend to find that I've had 2 extremes. I've gone from having some artists that have just gone, why bother paying for high cost productions? I'll just record at home, get it out there, not invest in anything because I'm still creating. Is it worth me investing money in my project right now, or should I wait? Then you have had other artists that have gone in super creative mode, because I think that's the other aspect. on the mind front is obviously you think about different things, you're almost more creative, you're in a different mindset. So I've had other artists that have just been creating non-stop. The strategy will come next, but I think just to purely answer your question with regards to souls and minds, they're obviously one, extremely delicate, and it can go one of two ways.
Grace, thank you very much. So summing up, it's a time of extremes, and I don't think that only creatively we can talk about extremes. It is a time of extremes for everybody. Just watching the news, you can realize that the world is in a troubled place, and not only because of the pandemic. Before we go on, I'd like to welcome Hannes. Hello, and thank you for joining us.
Hi, thanks. Sorry for being late. First learning of the day, there is a time difference between Bucharest and Vienna.
Yes, 1 hour. Thank you. Thank you for joining us. It's no problem. We're talking about artist management in times of crisis, Hannes. And the first question was, how are your artists doing? Especially, how are their minds and souls doing? I won't batter you with this question right away. I'll let you get the atmosphere here at MMB.
It's fine.
Ekaterina or Jake, any of you want to chip in and let Hannes get accommodated, please do.
Yeah, it's so weird, to be on a panel online with all these people. We've been together so many times in the real ones.
Yeah.
Still nice. However, getting back to your question, I think we all lived through the same situation with our artists. They were all like in different state of mind. So with our artists, like some of them said, no, we don't want to do anything because we don't know what the future is. We don't know what's going on. We hide under the bed. And I had examples of artists that not just didn't create anything or didn't invest. They were not just doing anything. They were really depressed, and they didn't want to communicate, and they didn't know what to do next. And in this case, I think it was the right decision to give them time, because we all live with our emotions in a different way. At the same time, we have a couple of artists that were really creative, that managed to work on their skills, that they didn't work too much during the normal time when they were touring. For example, one thing with a lot of interviews and a lot of public speaking, not all the artists are good at that. Some of them are really shy. Some of them don't know what to say. And I have an artist who said, okay, I will do any online activity. I will do any interview. I will just practice this skill while I have time. So he gave lectures, he participated in public talks, he gave lots of interviews, and they worked really, really well for his media strategy, because he stayed on. And now in Russia, for example, we have concerts back again in a reduced way, but he is the one who's been booked the first, because he was there all the time, and he is the one who had most of the deals with brands, with booking agencies, etc. So it was a good strategy.
So you had an artist that managed to switch from being just an artist to also being a good online communicator, and staying relevant throughout this period proved for him to be a very good head start, as opposed to all the other artists who were more silent than him. And so he got immediately, he was already being in the focus of attention of everybody. So of course he got booked right away. Very good input. Thank you very much, Ekaterina. Jake, how are your artists doing? I know actually you have a lot of input from other managers as well, so your examples are more than welcome.
Ekaterina's great point about an artist embracing the opportunity to do stuff online and to develop their other skills. I know of one artist who I think personally is uniquely suited to live streaming, because they use a lot of visuals and their instrumental music that would work well from, you don't need that visceral, the singer's going crazy, they jumped on the speaker stack. And they avoided completely getting into this and sort of put up that flag of it's not creative, it's not the right thing to do. And it's very easy as an artist not to challenge yourself. So EKATERINA described her artist saying, I'm going to try and do this stuff that I'm not normally doing. I'm going to force myself. And I think that's really tough for artists. There are some who aren't going to ever be good at that example, but there are a lot that it's just fear. And that applies year round, pandemic or no pandemic, and overcoming your fear and lipping in. And it is much harder with the isolation of a camera online talking without the backdrop, the low lights, the alcohol and everything else. It's not appropriate for everyone, but I think a few people have just gone and done here's me playing my new guitar in my room, this is a new song I just wrote, and the consumer's being flooded with those. So innovating and finding different ways, telling stories, communicating about social projects that you're interested in, building up your profile as an all-round entertainer, and your engagement with the audience is absolutely crucial. I have one artist who's very good at that. Similar story to EKATERINA. She's now developing podcasts and YouTube videos that will go on once the pandemic is over, and once she can play live again, she will be working hard at creating other revenue streams for herself. So it's that difficult thing of, yes, it's a hard time. Yes, you're under stress, but don't use that as an excuse not to push yourself forward. Very challenging task.
Yeah, get out of your comfort zone, do something that you haven't done before, go out there, because once you do something and you get seen, you get noticed by the environment, of course, additional revenue streams will come, and they will just keep flowing once life picks up again, and you'll actually earn more money and be better off than before, faster, which is, of course, a bit optimistic as the times that we're living are not currently offering us an end to this crisis. But of course, any revenue right now is a good revenue. Hannes, what about your artists?
A bit of all the stories that I've just heard. So it's on the one hand, it's really a bit of an extreme situation where on the one hand, you have artists that are super active and try to get the most out of it and be creative and produce and create. And the others really, especially at the beginning of the crisis, were literally depressed. But I think many or most of the people learned something from it now, looking back at those past 4 months, that it might be wise to have a rest every now and then, at least. So basically they used it really to rest and go on a vacation, literally, even if it's just in the lockdown, and stay at home and not touching the guitar once or so. So when you think about what has become one of the main topics in the past year's conferences was mental health. And I'd like to address this issue here as well. So especially part of the artists that I'm working with have been super productive, and they've been active in different projects and basically working 24/7, almost literally, like really on the run for years, going to conferences, going festivals, playing this and that. And some of those actually really just took a rest and became different human beings almost. So I think we should never forget, even for the people surrounding the artists and being in the industry, that it cannot be always work. So every now and then you really need some rest. And this past couple of months, I think, were quite good in a way that they gave us a chance to actually reflect on what we do, how we do it, and what pace we do it. And of course, there is a business angle to all that. And we are facing probably very, very difficult, let's say at least 3, 4, 5 years, not only a couple of months. It's not over as quickly as we might think. We don't really know when or if life comes back in a certain range. So we will live in a time of uncertainty. And I think we will, the other conclusion that I have from all this is that we will have to use what we really have at source, namely being creative, the whole creativity and the whole scene, to come up with solutions for maybe something we don't even see yet. So something that replaces the life experience from earlier days, because we won't go back there. Something that replaces a certain revenue stream because we won't be coming back there. And I think music's always been really good in that. Take the whole history of the digital era. So it might be a bit too early to actually have the actual solution, but actually realizing that the world will be very, very different in the future in 2-3 years from the world we used to know 2-3 years back. Nobody knows where it's going, but it will be different. So we will need certain strength and energy and power and creativity to actually come up with something for right then.
And also, completing what you just said is another conclusion that more than one panels at MMB have had these past few days. Even trying to elaborate long-term strategies can prove fatal at this point in time, because you might be wasting energy on so many variables that I think that baby steps is like, it can be the whole conclusion of MMBOnline can be just don't plan long-term, just use every opportunity, baby steps. This is what you got to do. Otherwise, you just might waste all your energy and even your mind in the end when you see that the strategy you've been working on for weeks just crumbles to the ground in a matter of days.
See, that's something that really happened most was the term, oh, fuck strategy, really. Because, I mean, we were hit really bad. We had releases on the 13th and 20th of March, both super important topics for the whole company. So right when the lockdown hit, right when all this arrived, 2 major releases, huge tours, and, you know, everything you can think of it. But many people, especially the creative ones, not the depressed ones, but the rather creative ones, were really, fuck strategy. Let's just do this online streaming. Let's just do that release. And nobody really thought about what that might be doing long-term, because nobody knows anyway. So fuck strategy.
Yeah, I think I'll make a t-shirt with that and wear it to every meeting from now on. I'd like to go back on something Grace said, because please.
I'm not sure I agree, and I'm being very cautious, particularly because of who's making this point. Way smarter than me and very successful. I think that, like, Amazon have done amazingly well out of this crisis, because they already had a business model where they built up logistics, and so the stores are now suddenly trying to pivot to logistics, even though we've known about internet and drone delivery and stuff for ages. And Amazon had this policy when they launched of cash flow. They were never looking at profits, they were looking at cash flow. How much money can we pull from people to come through our system, not what's the maximum we can charge for stuff. So they ended up lowering the price, lowering the profit margin to generate cash flow. And that's proved perfect at this unpredictable time, because they had a long-term strategy and they stuck to it. I think at the moment it takes many years. The Beatles kind of happened with one album. It took, say, Bruce Springsteen, U2, 3 albums. By the time you got to like acts like the Arctic Monkeys, it was taking 5 albums. Billie Eilish has blown up. You'll find loads of artists that blow up on their first record. But you have to assume that you're a long-term investor with a strategy that you're going to pursue. You can pivot when disruption comes along, particularly if you've arranged a summer of festival shows and they're wiped out. That's a problem. But I think now is, just playing devil's advocate, I think now is probably the time to really consolidate your strategy and know what you're doing, particularly with your focus online, from January the 1st for a 2-3 year period.
I'd agree on that. Certainly, I think the one thing I was referring to was really the strategy you might have set up for the classic release cycle. So rather short-term strategy. What you're saying is think about your long-term strategy too, and keep your corporate identity safe. So I cannot do online streamings all of a sudden because everyone is doing it. For an artist that's not made for that, that's not fit for that. I shouldn't be doing that, and I shouldn't reverse strategy for that. On the other hand, I have artists, you know, the classic singer-songwriter format, this is heaven for them. They can present themselves in a completely different way and it still works. So for them, of course, that can be a useful tool. Of course, half a year ago, you didn't think about a strategy that would involve something like that, but you can adapt to that. You can use your given long-term strategy to adapt this to that model. You cannot do that with all the bands. But we, of course, we pushed releases. We had to cancel or postpone tours and all that. That was rather the point in saying, okay, forget about this and that. Let's think about something else.
I think I'm actually in agreement, just to add in extra here also with Jake, that it's still important to have a goal, to have a vision, because if, as a role of a manager, if we don't support on that or help create that vision, then they may just give up tomorrow, you know. So you've almost got to sort of be realistic, but also, you know, optimistic, I think, as well, taking on board all this flexibility. So I'm sort of leaning more on the side of Jake, that it is still important to try and have some sort of strategy, but know that not everything's going to go to plan, you know.
But I think what Hannes actually meant that, yeah, we do have, it's not that we can follow the classic strategy we used to have before. We just we have to build a new one, and we have to use new formats. And Hannes, I felt your pain so deeply. I was following you on the Facebook, and you know, only in April we canceled 18 shows. Most of them like really big ones, starting from 2,000 tickets. So yeah, when I was reading about your plans being ruined, so I could feel it really well. I think it was really good time, and it still is, for us as a company and for each artist as a, you know, business unit, to kind of revise how the business is going and see which parts don't really work, but we still spend so much time on it. So to get rid of it and continue with the like strong points and continue developing the strong parts of each artist and of business as a whole.
Also, maybe a conclusion or a mix of both opinions, which I don't think are actually that different, is that you can plan, you know where you want to get. You're not sure what all the steps will be of getting you there. You just keep on going, and you know, you have your target there. You have your end of the road or end of this project in sight, and then you just head there and use every opportunity that the present times offer, however out of the box it is, just to keep on trudging along that road to get to your goal.
Yeah.
Maybe that could be a conclusion. Now,
the car is broke, so we might just walk, but
yeah,
it's the same way.
and maybe
we'll still get there in the end.
Yeah, maybe
exactly.
we find a bicycle on the road, and then that breaks down, and then we learn how to ride a horse and so on. But at least we're keep on going. Now, going back to something Grace said at the beginning of our discussion, when I asked you how your artists are doing mentally and with their souls, and you said one of the artists came to you and they said, "Give us hope." Now, an artist manager's mission is a tough one during normal times. How are you guys doing? I mean, you have to give hope. That's dangerous, because you might give hope that might not be justified. Do you advise caution? What can an artist manager do to support their artists during such difficult times? And let's go, I don't know, anyone who feels inspired, because this is such a wonderful discussion. Then I ask this question and I can be silent for the next 20 minutes.
I think the key is being realistic, because right at this moment in time, nobody has the answer. It's all an unknown situation that we're living in. And I think sort of giving hope is just sort of, for me at least, from my perspective, is trying to get as much information as possible to be able to advise in the best way, you know? So it's trying being realistic. And at the end of the day, some decisions may be tough. You may not want to take a flight to another city in Spain to play at a concert, because it's their health you're playing with at the end of the day, and they might not want to take that risk. So I think for me, it's sort of being realistic with them, but also trying to have the right amount of information to advise correctly, because it is such a delicate time, and as we say, there's no clear path ahead. So that's just sort of from my perspective.
Yeah, let's continue that. For us, the main goal at the very beginning, and I'm really proud of my team because the whole like management team and the whole business team managed to like keep going and to adapt and adjust to this new situation from the very beginning. And you know, we all as people, we are all responsible, I don't know, for our families, so we need to like provide and continue the normal life. And for us as a management team, it was really important to provide the normal life for our artists, because we couldn't just lose them on the way and let them, I don't know, suffer from this crisis and give hope. For us, the main goal was to give opportunities. And, you know, there still are opportunities. And I'm really happy that all our artists, like, continued doing something and continued earning money. So for us, it was important to like find some solutions so the artists could actually do something and to find opportunities for them. So we had a lot of deals in sync, and it was not like we were waiting for these deals to come, but we were working on these deals. We worked a lot with brands, and again, not just waiting for an offer from a brand, but coming to brands saying, okay, you now have to change your client strategy as well. And for example, you were supposed to make an event. Let's think about something together. We have artists and we can create something together. And we had quite a lot of projects supported by brands that we managed to do during the crisis time. The best one, I think, it was by a telecommunication operator in Russia. And they were they organized a series of concerts, but these concerts were at home of each artist, and they were called like quarantine concerts, and they were in the most like ecological and safe way. So the team from the brand would come all like dressed as doctors, you know, they would set everything up for an artist, and only then an artist would come and the whole team would be like outside in a different room. And they filmed all of that. And it was not just a concert, but they also spoke to artists, like how they're doing, what they do during this time. And it worked really well. And this, that's just one example. And we had a lot more. So for us, it was not about the hope, but about the opportunities.
So just to sum up what's been said up till now, first of all, be realistic with your artists. Don't give them hope when there's none to be had, but also don't just be very pessimistic when it's actually not the case. Another very important thing that an artist manager can do is make sure that that artist has some revenue, and actually that takes a lot of effort and a lot of initiative. But that is something that an artist manager has to do during these times to ensure the livelihood of their artists in any way that might be possible. Okay, Hannes, Jake, whichever one of you wants to join.
I like the points being made, and I'd like to add something that might sound a bit unusual for a manager, but actually the most simple thing that we came up with was just being friends, you know, really just talk and listen. And keep business aside for a moment, because this was really maybe a learning for all of us in these difficult times, what conversation is worth for your daily life, especially if you don't see each other in real life, but only through Zoom or Hangouts or something. So actually, we learned a lot about each other that was not really business related, and I had the feeling that this actually helped, or gave each other sort of an advice of how to act with each other when we're back at full business level, you know, how we treat ourselves in both directions, actually. We managed to learn a lot about things that went well and didn't go so well in the past. So we used it for sort of an analysis, but more on a friendship level. So I have the feeling that we came up with much stronger relationships with our artists. That certainly helped. It's not a business matter in the first place, but it would be, or it will be in the long run.
So become more friends with your artists. Try to understand them as human beings and let them discover you as their manager, but also you, their manager, as a human being. That will, of course, prove a great advantage in the months to come when things will come to push and shove for sure. Jake?
With that strengthening the relationship, a word that sits in there is trust. In normal times, when I've worked in other industries with complicated technical things, nobody has ever come and advised me on how to do my job. But with artist management, everybody around the artist, friends and family, people who have no connection with the music industry, has an opinion on whether the manager's doing a good job. Was that the right single? Why is this not bigger on that platform? Why aren't you on that radio station? All the other stuff on there is not as good as you. And it's almost like football managers. Artist management is a thing that everyone has an opinion on. But at this time, some of the problems that people have been describing and some of the solutions are they're big problems and they're complex solutions. And I think that a lot of the chatter around the artists has eased off and people can see how difficult the job is. And that development of the trust at this point will be very important when we get back in and all the chatter starts again. The artist needs to learn how hard it is. It's not just they wrote an amazing song. That's not enough. There's so many levers and channels to market, and there's so much competition out there now as the market has gone global. We've never seen so much competition, that it's really important that the artist is able to trust the manager and block out some of the noise around them.
That is a very good point, because I have, of course, you might know the saying, but I have a good friend here in Romania. He's an artist manager, and he always says that if everything goes well, it's the merit of the artist, and if something goes wrong, that's the manager's fault.
It's the fault of the manager.
Yes, exactly. And it's not only artists who say that; it's everybody around them, their friends, their family. It's a very good point. And also, I'd like to mention the fact that we're nearing the half, or actually we're past the half of our discussion, and we've only talked about what the managers can do for their artists. I'll bet there are managers watching this, and I'd like for you to give your personal examples. How have you handled this crisis? Because of course the manager has to put him or herself aside and actually be there for their artists, especially during times like these. But it's not easy for artist managers themselves to stay sane, to stay positive, to stay creative, to actually be the best self that they can be in order to surpass such difficult times. So what did you do as persons, as managers, to keep on going?
I've read a lot of books on data.
Okay.
That's actually quite good what Jake just picked up on then, because I definitely define mine as 4. Learn the things that, do your own SWOT analysis. So what am I as a person, as a manager, like, where are my weaknesses? What do I need to learn? Second of all, maintain the networks that have created over time and create more opportunities, find new people to create new business leads. And it's just, this constant learning, so networking, opportunities, new business, and learning, just to keep the mind active, because at the end of the day, we're also creative people working with the artists. So I think it really is key that those bits of, or gaps of knowledge that we don't know, I think I've attended every single Spotify streaming playlisting conference that there is in the whole of our network between us all. I think we've seen each other between EKATERINA and so many other of the friends that are in this conference will have seen each other in so many Zoom sessions organised just to keep in contact and keep relevant. So that's how I've sort of survived, to put it that way.
Yeah, can I continue? For me, it was important, and it still is, to keep the balance, both in work, because it's impossible, as we have to generate a lot of new ideas, a lot of new models, and a lot of new things. For me, it's important to keep the balance between this generating new ideas and working on new strategy and new models, and doing some routine, because there were some days when I I didn't know what to do next, and I didn't know what the next step is. And you're so responsible for your team and your artists and all of that. And I was like, okay, today I just do the contracts. I just do the mechanical stuff, you know, just to clear my mind from all the new ideas and all the new stuff. Also, it was important to keep the balance between your, you know, personal life and your work, because once we stopped traveling and we stopped like going outside, me and Grace, we were in Spain where we had like one of the toughest lockdowns, where we were not allowed to go outside at all. You kind of lose this border between your workspace and your private life, because it's all in one place. And for me, it was important to like have the schedule for work and for the family, to be actually with my family without traveling all the time. So it was good time to like use this time for personal stuff as well. And the third thing that kept me going and was and still is important, to talk to my colleagues from around the world and to know that I'm not alone in this thing, you know, in this crisis with all these problems. And that's why it was like important to talk to people and see how they're doing, just to talk about normal and personal life as well, besides the work crisis.
Yeah, the things you do at the bar. Usually we don't have a bar. It's funny, the reason I was late is today is so we actually should have had the Austrian Music Awards back in April, or late April. So of course it didn't happen. In the first place, they postponed it, and then usually, you know, it's a big show and live on the telly and stuff. In the first place, they postponed it to September, but then they decided, okay, it won't work in September either. So what they now do is they tape a show with all the bands playing live, of course, with no audience, but they do a sort of a fake show now in a very big hall here in the city. And I was just coming back from there, from the taping of the show with one of the bands that I'm working with. That's got to win an award. So I must not talk about it. Anyways, it's funny what it did to us as a company. We coined the term called in English something like so when that whole pandemic hit, everyone was running in circles. Oh my God, we must do something. We got to find the solution. What we're going to do with this and that, and the shows and the tours. So basically, in the first couple of weeks, really, everyone was sitting at home, but probably working more than even before, trying to fix this. And of course, there was no way to really fix this. And then this was kind of, that also included, for me personally, a lot of public communication. So I'm involved in a couple of organizations here in Austria, starting with the IFPI and the Austrian Music Fund and stuff like that. So I was on the news, and that, of course, people called me, and you have a lot of communication going on, also trying to create funds for labels, for management companies, for artists that give money to you now in that crisis. So a lot of these things. So I think you handled it much more cleverly than I did with learning and stuff. I didn't really find a lot of time for that, but actually I tried to use at least some of the time to find myself and reevaluate with how many artists can I actually work. Is it worth doing this and that all the time? So basically trying to refocus and reshaping one's own strategy. The whole thing that is really difficult for me right now is that I have two companies that I run. One is a ticketing company, so I don't need to tell you a lot about how it's going there. And the other one is the actual music management company with 9 people. So of course, a big thing that we constantly discuss is basically how to survive all this and how to come up with solutions how to survive. So this is a very difficult part, and my personal stuff in there can only be part of the bigger story and the bigger solution.
Thank you very much, Hannes. I think we have time for one more question to go around, and I'd like to refer to one of a manager's most important and most valued tools, or maybe weapons even. It's called the network. Grace actually named it before, and Hannes talked about the stuff that we used to, the work that we used to do at the bar. That's networking, and how can, or is the network still valuable now that people are not traveling, we're not actually meeting each other, everything is gone online? How valuable is a manager's network? And if it is valuable, what did each of one do in order to maintain that network? Because there's no more conferences where we can meet and talk and have drinks. There's no more concerts where different artists meet with their teams. So we actually have to pick up the phone and call each other just to see how we're doing, or how does this work?
I mean, it's something that's been, for me, really, really important. And I mean, Katerina knows this. I mean, we may have connected about 2 or 3 times. And even with a group of us that were at different ENES festivals, we organised just a 5 o'clock carver on a Friday together, just to sort of share stories. And I think, to come directly to your question, the network it's even more important now than ever, because it's not only your direct contact, but it's also the referrals, you know. So I think now we need to be more open, and that's at least how I've been living this situation, is if somebody knows somebody that could help me, then we'll put each other in contact, because we need to grow that network now more than ever. And if we do have to organise Zoom calls or Skypes, or even just brainstorming sessions of, you're good at this, I'm good at this, how can we work together to make this better? So, I mean, I know it's a very nice to have situation, and it's not the same as sitting at a bar, drinking a beer in a more relaxed atmosphere, you know, getting to know people. But it really is constantly working away at growing as much as you can to create these opportunities. Me, on a personal level, it's, I mean, since my very first time when I was actually on the panel with Jake, I think it was 2.5 years ago now, nearly 3 years ago in Sweden, about the management panel. I think we've just sort of, with so many contacts that we've acquired then, I think that's really helping, at least me on a personal level, to give me confidence and shape the business, because we've also got colleagues that recognise where my strengths are, and that they know that they can rely on me, and vice versa, you know. So I think it's been, networking is more important than ever. You just have to do it in a different way.
And also a very, very important point is that you have to prove yourself useful and use your network for other people as well, because
totally.
that'll reciprocate in the end.
I mean, we worked with Peter for the magnets. Sorry to interrupt there, Dan. But for example, with the release of the Magnets single, I was like, well, I've got all my promotional contacts in Spain. I've got a release of an artist that I want to bring over to Sweden. Let's do, you know, come to some sort of agreement. I work on the launch, you work on that launch, and try and optimize it. Because if I can get national radio play, which we managed to do as a pre-release 2 days before for the new single, then why not? If I think that I can help them create a market, then why not work together? You know, I think it's a win-win situation, really.
Thank you, Grace.
I think what's a bit more difficult, referring to the bar situation, is the things that happen unplanned. You know, you bump into someone, or you get introduced to someone by someone else. You're coming up with ideas. What Grace just said, I absolutely agree, and I try to be as open as possible all my life, because I strongly believe in the strength of a shared network. Yet that has to start somewhere, and you have to start creating it somewhere. So at least in Austria, we started to create, we have a thing called Musikstammtisch, which basically is nothing more that the whole industry meets once every 2 months it is. And they just did it online twice. And recently we had one open air in WUK, the place that holds Waves Vienna usually. So it's big enough to actually hold a lot of people too. And with all the distancing and stuff, it still worked quite well. And that was a relief to actually see each other again. even though it was just the Austrian network, but you could see the value or the difference between what we are trying to do in a remote way like we do right now. And the difference is, okay, usually we probably would have a cup of coffee afterwards and continue to talk or something like that, and then bump into something else, someone else, or come up with a different topic. And this is usually where the magic happens, and we might miss out on something like that, or still have to come up with solutions for that, because nobody goes to a planned inspirational meeting with someone he doesn't know. That doesn't work.
Yeah, that's true. Jake, Ekaterina, any one of you want to add anything?
Yeah, no, Grace mentioned a lot of things already that we did. So we had like our informal meetings, and also both I participated in a lot of different meetings, conferences, live streams like that. I think it worked in a positive way for Russian music industry in particular, because, you know, Russian music industry is a tough one because nobody likes no one. No one wants to talk to each other and share credits. Every time I tried to organize something for the industry, it was always really, really difficult because, you know, you try to put people together and they're like huge enemies or competitors, and they don't want to be together in the same room. And during the COVID time and the crisis time, some of them were just so bored or they didn't know what to do. So they would go online to participate at some conferences or some live streams. And actually it works in a positive way for the Russian market in particular. So the network finally started to grow. Finally, the industry got together because, for example, the live industry got together to start the conversation with the government about the support, and they understood that at this point they have to stop being just competitors. They have to work together in order to get the goal they all need to.
You're new to this and you don't have much of a network. Cherish the network that you do have, even if it's on a very local basis, and develop that, because as the others have described, everyone in that network will in turn have their own connections. If you're trying to develop your network online, don't just randomly add someone on LinkedIn or something. Do some research about who they are. Send them a message that shows you've looked at who they are and what activity they've done or something that you're interested in. Ask them a question. Try and engage with people so that you start to build a relationship. And offer, if you're at the start of your career, offer people help. Say, hey, I see you work on this project. It's fascinating. It's really interesting. Let me know if I can do some interning for you. I have spare time. I don't need paying or whatever. So be very respectful and do a lot of research as you try and build your network at the early stage, particularly online.
Okay, we're nearing the end of our discussion, and I'd like, first of all, to thank you all for being with us here today. As I've said before, it's quite painful to see you all just online and not have you on stage in Bucharest. I sincerely hope that we'll be able in March 2021 to have a regular Mastering the Music Business Conference and Showcase Festival, and so we can in which we can all look back at these times and actually look to the future and see some hope of getting back to normal. I look forward to meeting you at different bars around Europe and and bumping into people and doing all the beautiful stuff that we were used to doing and we took for granted. So Ekaterina, Grace, Jake, Hannes, thank you all so much. Hope to see you again and wish you all the best.
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you very much.